WLRN edition 123 in 3, 2, 1.
I was born woman, off my knees I will stand for my liberation. Sisters, rise again. I was born woman, off my knees I will stand for my liberation. Rise and rise again.
Greetings and welcome to the 123rd edition podcast of Women's Liberation Radio News for this Thursday, July 2nd, 2026. Happy summer, everyone. This is Thistle, WLRN member for the last 10 years. This month's edition focuses on political lesbianism following the release of Angela Wilde's book, I Wish I Was a Lesbian, published by Spinifex Press. The topic of political lesbianism has caused quite a stir in the femisphere as of late, so WLRN wanted to weigh in and hear both from contributing authors to the book and from opponents to the concept of political lesbianism. We'll hear an edited version of the first half of WLRN's live-streamed roundtable discussion held on June 20th with Jesika Gonzalez, Julianna Varni, and Menasche and Pinwheel Art. These four women offer their thoughts on and definitions of the words lesbian and political lesbian. To hear the entire unedited hour-and-a-half-long discussion, go to WLRN's YouTube channel and click on the Live Videos tab. After hearing from the live roundtable panel, you'll hear an excerpt of a private interview I did with Angela Wilde about her book and political lesbianism. The full interview with Angela is available to hear and watch at WLRNmedia.com. Finally, hear my commentary and Jocelyn's from the WLRN team as we continue to explore thoughts and ideas surrounding the terms lesbian and political lesbian before signing off. The team at WLRN produces a monthly radio broadcast to break the sound barrier women are blocked by under the status quo rule of men. This blocking of women's discourse we see in all sectors of society, be they conservative, liberal, mainstream, progressive, or radical. The thread that runs through all of American politics, except for separatist feminism, is male dominance and entitlement in all spheres. To start off today's edition, here's Cat Bradfield with women's news from around the globe and an update on the status of the WLRN 10-year anniversary countdown of the top 100 songs. Take it away, Cat.
Thanks, Thistle. Conservative politicians in the US are increasingly in favour of prosecuting women who get abortions. Previously, the focus was on punishment of the doctors providing the service, but a growing number of conservative leaders are arguing that arresting women would be a more effective way to deter them from seeking abortions. On June 24th, a group of 60 conservative leaders, pastors, and anti-abortion campaigners signed a petition to remove the legal immunity protecting women who seek abortion from prosecution. The largest anti-abortion group in Texas is also currently planning to test this method by threatening to revoke the medical licenses of female doctors found to be taking abortion pills. The issue has caused division in anti-abortion groups, with many still opposed to punishment of women and instead encouraging compassion for the women and punishment for service providers. The most prominent voices on this side of the debate are leaders of pregnancy centres, organisations that provide counselling for pregnant women and attempt to dissuade them from seeking abortions. On June 19th, a court ruling in Missouri restored access to medication abortions by striking down laws found to have undermined a constitutional amendment guaranteeing reproductive rights. The case was brought by Planned Parenthood and the ACLU, who argued that the state laws were thwarting the will of citizens who voted yes to a fundamental right to reproductive freedom on the 2024 ballot. Planned Parenthood Great Plains CEO Emily Wales said that the decision brings compassion and common sense back to Missouri healthcare. The US government plans to deport 24 people to the Central African Republic, including 2 women who sought refuge in the US after fleeing Iran. The current travel advice for the Central African Republic from the US government is do not travel for any reason, due to ongoing human rights abuses including unlawful killings, torture, and arbitrary arrest and detention. Many of the affected migrants have court orders preventing deportation to their home countries due to threat of persecution or torture, so the Trump administration is seeking agreements with other countries willing to take them. A representative for the Iranian American Legal Defense Fund said that the women were in serious disbelief about the situation. They have no ties to the country, and it hasn't been made clear where they will live or if they will ultimately be sent back to Iran. Iranian singer Parastu Ahmadi and 8 members of her production team have reportedly been sentenced to 74 lashes for performing without a hijab in a video posted on YouTube in 2024. According to court documents, the sentence includes a 2-year ban on both leaving the country and engaging in artistic activities alongside the lashings. A representative for the US-based Center for Human Rights in Iran said that the punishment was yet another reminder that human rights conditions in Iran have not changed, despite the Iranian authorities' wartime propaganda campaign aimed at improving their image. Iranian actor Setare Maleki said that she felt immensely proud of Parastu Ahmadi, and that knowing all the consequences she would have to face, she still refused to give up her right as a woman to live, to sing, and to be heard. Iranian women never stop fighting against tyranny, not even for a moment, and that is truly remarkable. For an Iranian artist who refuses to comply with censorship inside Iran, the daily routine is a form of resistance. We've come a long way, but there is still a long road ahead. I'm grateful that every day another beloved artist reminds us of hope again and becomes a guiding light. Last month, protests erupted across France after the murder of 11-year-old schoolgirl Lihana Rameau Bernard. It was revealed by authorities that a man arrested on suspicion of her kidnapping and murder had previously been reported to police and other agencies multiple times since 2017, accused on several occasions of rape and assault, but never questioned by police. This case has amplified concerns by the French people over the competency of the police and justice system in handling cases of sexual violence, and repeated failures to protect women and children. The French Justice Minister has conceded that the judicial system failed to protect this little girl, and apologised to this family and to the French people, who are rightfully shocked and terrified to witness such failures. On June 25th, a Somali court sentenced 27-year-old Sadia Moatlim Ali to 3 years in prison after she criticised the federal government on Facebook and TikTok. Ali, a nursing graduate and rickshaw driver from Mogadishu, had spoken publicly about unemployment, corruption, forced evictions, and rising fuel prices. Although prosecutors initially accused her of several offences, she was ultimately convicted of insulting government institutions. Ali has been detained since the 12th of April and says that she was tortured in custody, including being beaten, held in solitary confinement, and threatened with sexual violence. Human rights organisations and former Somali political leaders condemned the sentence, describing it as politically motivated and part of a wider crackdown on dissent, particularly against female activists and journalists. Sierra Leone's First Lady, Fatima Maada Bio, is facing growing criticism after refusing to explicitly condemn female genital mutilation, or FGM, without what she called reliable data proving its harms. In comments made public last month, Bio told traditional practitioners, known as Sowes, not to be afraid, prompting outrage from women's rights activists, health professionals, and survivors. Bio leads a campaign titled Hands Off Our Girls, dedicated to protecting girls in Sierra Leone from rape and child marriage, and increasing participation of girls in education. However, this campaign does not include FGM as one of the practices it condemns as exploitation and abuse. Campaigners argue that her remarks undermine years of work to end FGM in Sierra Leone, where the practice remains widespread and legal despite international pressure. Sierra Leone currently has one of the highest rates of FGM in the world, with 83% of girls subjected to the practice as of 2019. In 2025, the Economic Community of West African States ruled that Sierra Leone must ban FGM, but the country's Child Rights Act passed in 2025 omitted any prohibition. More than 20 activists, politicians, and UN experts have since written to the Organisation of African First Ladies for Development, demanding clarification of Bio's position. Critics say her stance reflects a broader political reluctance to challenge deeply entrenched cultural practices, even as girls continue to face serious physical and psychological harm. Midwives from across Africa and Asia were denied visas to attend the International Confederation of Midwives Congress, held in Lisbon, Portugal, from 14th to 18th of June. The summit focused on the global maternal mortality crisis, particularly in countries where preventable deaths during childbirth remain highest. In some cases, male politicians from affected countries were granted visas, but practitioners working on the front lines of the crisis were unable to participate. Delegates from countries including Nigeria, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Uganda, and Sierra Leone reportedly received last-minute visa refusals, despite months of preparation. More than 1,000 midwife leaders signed an appeal calling for urgent reconsideration of the decisions, arguing that excluding healthcare workers from lower-income nations reinforces inequalities in global health policymaking. 70% of mother deaths occur in sub-Saharan Africa, with most of the remainder occurring in Asia. The murders of 2 teenage girls in Argentina in May have reignited national outrage over violence against women and renewed criticism of President Javier Milei's government. 14-year-old Agustina Vega was found dead in Cordoba after disappearing on 23rd of May, while 17-year-old Dolce Candia was later discovered murdered in Misiones province. Both cases shocked the country and triggered demonstrations linked to the feminist movement Ni Una Menos. Protesters argue that the recent government cuts to gender violence prevention programs and the dismantling of women's institutions have weakened protections for vulnerable women and girls. Milei's administration has also questioned the legal classification of femicide, alarming feminist organizations and human rights advocates. The killings coincided with the annual Ni Una Menos marches in early June, marking 11 years since the movement began after the murder of teenager Chiara Paez in 2015. Activists say the latest cases show that violence against women remains a national emergency, despite official claims that femicide rates are declining. US woman Catherine Breed will take to the ocean this month in a quest to become the first person ever to swim the entire length of California. The 900-mile journey is expected to take 4 months, swimming up to 15 miles per day and sheltering on a sailboat overnight. Her story has sparked conversations about women and endurance sport and the growing visibility of female athletes in extreme challenges traditionally dominated by men. UK woman Mel Bound, who started the women-only run club This Woman Runs, has been honoured with an OBE as part of the King's birthday celebrations. The club was founded in 2014 and has grown to become one of the world's largest women-only run clubs, with sessions in 35 cities across the UK and around 250,000 members. Bound says that it's about more than just exercise. It's the sense of belonging that women get from running together that attracts them to the group. She said that she cried when receiving the King's birthday honours letter, not because this work has ever been about recognition, but because recognition like this makes visible so much of what usually goes unseen. On June 30th, the US Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to uphold laws banning biological males from participating in women's and girls' sports. The justices upheld the laws in Idaho and West Virginia, saying that Title IX, the federal law against sex discrimination in education, allows schools to divide sports teams based on biological sex. The court's decision has implications for 25 other states and reflects growing public support for the protection of women's sports. In a poll conducted last year, 80% of Americans, including 2/3 of Democrats, opposed the inclusion of biological males in women's sports. On June 24th, singer Olivia Rodrigo announced that she would be organising a music festival with all female artists, titled Daisy Chain Fields and held in California on August 29th. The lineup features artists from a variety of genres, including Bikini Kill, Chappell Roan, and Stevie Nicks. Reaction to the news was overwhelmingly positive, with tickets going on sale immediately following the announcement and selling out in just 30 minutes. The festival has been compared to Sarah McLachlan's Lilith Fair Festival, another music festival with an all-female lineup held in 1997 to 1999 and revived in 2010. Rodrigo says that Lilith Fair was a huge inspiration for Daisy Chain Fields and has included McLachlan in the festival lineup. When announcing the festival, Rodrigo wrote, "I've had a dream of doing this festival for years and I am so ecstatic it's finally coming true. Daisy Chain Fields features an all-women lineup and 100% of the net proceeds will go to charities dedicated to advancing and advocating for women and girls. The lineup is truly insane and full of my heroes and friends. I firmly believe that joy, community, and music can be the drivers of meaningful change, and I'm hopeful this festival will be just that." And speaking of women's music, the first part of WLRN's 2026 Summer Music Countdown will come out on the 11th of July, featuring the top songs by female artists as voted by you, our listeners. That concludes WLRN's World News segment for this Thursday, July 2nd. I'm Cat Bradfield. Share your news stories, announcements, and tips with us by emailing info@wlrnmedia.com and letting us know what's going on.
This is Joe Brew, and you are listening to WLRN.
and Mary say there are two kinds of people in the world today. One or the other, a person must be. The men are them, the women are we. They agree it's a pleasure to be a lesbian. Lesbian, lesbian in no man's land. Lesbian, lesbian, any woman can be a lesbian. And Liza wishes the library had men and women placed separately. But theirs is the kingdom. She knows who she'll find in the history of mankind. But then she's inclined to be ahead of her time, and she's a lesbian. Lesbian, lesbian, no man's land. Lesbian, lesbian, any woman can be a lesbian.
That was Alix Dobkin with her 1973 hit Every Woman Can Be a Lesbian. Next up, we'll hear the beginning of a roundtable discussion Thistle held with Jesika Gonzalez and Menasche, contributing authors to the book I Wish I Was a Lesbian, edited by Angela Wilde, and opponents of political lesbianism, Julianna Varni and Pinwheel Art. The full, unedited discussion is available under the Live tab on WLRN's YouTube channel. After hearing from the panel, we'll hear Angela Wilde discussing political lesbianism and why she put out the book I Wish I Was a Lesbian. The full interview with Angela is available at WLRNmedia.com.
I was inspired to organize this discussion after seeing numerous social media commentaries criticizing both the concept of political lesbianism and Angela C. Wilde's new book, I Wish I Was a Lesbian, just released by our good friends at Spinifex Press. And I want to emphasize that each speaker here is an individual and does not represent all women who support political lesbianism or all women who oppose it. Thank you in advance for approaching this discussion with curiosity, respect, and an open mind. All right, to start us off, Jesika Gonzalez, a contributing author to I Wish I Was a Lesbian, will share her opening remarks and explain why she believes this conversation is important. Jesika.
Thank you so much, Thistle. The most important thing I'd like to get across today is that if you're a woman that has made the decision to walk away from men for whatever reason, whatever words you use to define that, or whether you assign words to it at all, be encouraged and forge ahead with that intention. Do not allow a discussion on literal semantics discourage you. If you read the book, you will see stories of regret among those of us that decided to become political lesbians and were argued back to bisexuality or heterosexuality by opponents of the idea. The result is suffering that those that argued us back to men won't know or care about. By arguing us back, they fail to acknowledge heterosexuality as more than a preference, but an institution, as Adrienne Rich discussed, and fail to recognize their individual roles in upholding it. Due to a refusal to reckon with the full depth of compulsory heterosexuality on that side of this debate, those women may never come around to our way of thinking. This means it may be in your best interest to simply keep your decision to yourself. If you must do it quietly, still do it. I do not mean you should hide your history or motivations from potential lovers. Sorry. As I state plainly in my piece in the book, be upfront about your intentions and be honest about your past. Political lesbians are women-identified women before anything else. There's obviously nothing women-identified about deceiving women into relationships. The single most important question to apply to your personal choice is the same one I apply to political lesbianism and all radical feminist theory. Who benefits? Does it benefit born this way lesbians to push us back to bisexuality? smaller dating pools, lesbian communities too small to sustain in-person networks, events, or establishments, less political power, reduced visibility. Does any of this improve any woman's material existence? Probably not, and it certainly does nothing to improve yours. There's simply too much drift between the categories heterosexual, bisexual, and lesbian over many women's lifetimes to pretend that every woman alive is born into and occupies just one of these groups for her whole life. To this day, there is no isolated biological cause or even set of biological circumstances that determine homosexuality. The only mildly compelling, to me, argument against the use of political lesbian is women adopting it with no skin in the fight, getting to enjoy the stolen valor, as you might call it, of lesbian struggle without having to endure the hardships it took to normalize it. However, at least some of us former bisexuals have faced consequences for our relationships with other girls, which persisted when we became women. Most of us would never claim to have suffered as much as those that came of age before, say, Ellen DeGeneres came out. But isn't that the whole point of struggle? To make it easier for those that come after you. For my part, I do not affix a label, bisexual or lesbian, to myself in day-to-day life. I work in manufacturing in a male-dominated environment. I am, however, openly out at my job. I speak freely about my girlfriend when conversation merits it. If there's a professional penalty to being a same-sex attracted woman in a male-dominated industry, I live every day prepared to pay it. Moreover, many political lesbians are on the front lines of pro-lesbian activism and always have been. Political lesbians are not to be confused with sexually experimenting women with no feminist consciousness. We have always fought to earn our keep. I cannot accept the impulse to condemn women like me to a lifetime of advertising our sexual availability to men by referring to ourselves as bisexual when we're not available to men. If I don't have a crush on any man, don't sleep with them, don't want to date them, in what way exactly am I bisexual? As a radical feminist, I believe concerted action will be required to overthrow the patriarchy. Political lesbianism is one of those actions. It does not require petitioning the state or asking men to change their behavior. That work is done, at least in the West. We can begin now. All you ever need is a critical mass. The golden age of lesbianism during the 1970s in the US and the UK was the last time we showed substantial movement in that direction. That golden age could not have existed without political lesbianism. That was the point in history when lesbianism was most threatening to the patriarchy. If its numbers are too few, lesbianism is no threat. This conversation matters now because data is emerging that women are already withdrawing from men. Birth rates are dropping, many heterosexual women are staying single for longer, and many women have taken up decentering men, not just radical feminists. We should seek to capitalize on this impulse. We want to make it socially safe and as frictionless as possible to choose political lesbianism, so that women toying with the idea of rejecting men aren't given reasons to go back. Support for political lesbianism is support for women's liberation. This is the time for women to build together with many more legal protections and social acceptance than lesbians have ever enjoyed before.
My name is Julianna Varni, and I, let's see, my bio, a little bit about myself. I am, I'm a feminist, I'm a lesbian. I didn't really do much activism or anything of that nature up until 2021. And I've gotten really involved in feminist discussions. And I feel like this discussion is important because even as a lesbian and someone that was trying to be as involved as I could in LGBTQ communities to find, not only for dating, but just to find people, women to be friends with, find other lesbians. I wasn't really able to connect with anyone. So it's happened later in my life. I think this conversation is really important because it wasn't until I actually started becoming friends with other feminists, other women-identified women that were putting women first intentionally, that I heard the term political lesbian. And it quite frankly, it really confused me in the beginning. I didn't understand what it was, what I was hearing. I didn't understand what could be political about being a lesbian. I think I've done a lot of studying on it myself, a lot of thinking about it myself. I believe I understand the concept. Jessica, I want to thank you for your introduction. I jotted some things down during yours that I'd like to think about a little more. But yeah, I think this is timely because I think that, like Jessica said, since the 70s, we really haven't had a mass of a movement. I'd love to see that again with women putting women first. And that's really all I have to say. So thank you, Thistle, for having us here. Thank you for the discussion. I look forward to hearing everyone's points of view and to contribute.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And we're going to hear from Anne, a founding member of Feminists in Struggle and contributing author to Angela's book. Thank you, Anne, for joining us.
You're welcome. I came out in the 1970s during the height of the feminist movement and the second wave and lesbian feminism. And I happened to land in San Francisco, which was very lucky for me, and into a vibrant, growing lesbian community. As Sally Gerhardt said, women were leaving men in droves. That's what she said. And that was true. There was lesbian potlucks in each block, literally. There was all kinds of lesbian activities. There was, obviously women's music and coffee houses and all kinds of activism going on. And lesbians were in the forefront of a lot of the feminism that was going on then. So I fell right in, and my life changed upside down. I was listening to Alix Dobkin, a friend of mine, my first lesbian friend, gave me the Alix Dobkin album called Lavender Jane Loves Women, and I listened to it, and it said any woman can be a lesbian. And I thought, well, is that true? And I found that it was for me. So women's lives were affected and changed by the movement, and that's a part of our history. In those days, nobody believed, and I say nobody, I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but almost nobody, no lesbian feminist believed that we had a gene or some kind of thing in our brain that made us gay, that we were different from other women in some biological sense. We believed we were completely normal women, and we were, was nothing biologically distinct about us just because we were lesbians. So that's a new development, and I've read studies on this, and it really was not. Nobody thought that way. Gay men did more, but not lesbians. Anyway, so I never looked back, but some women actually did go back to men, as we put it, when times got harder. And I did a book on it, actually. It's called Leaving the Life, and it's kind of out of print. It's hard to find, but I actually did a study on women to find out why they stopped being lesbians or stopped living as lesbians. And I found a huge amount of social pressures, family rejection, economic pressures, self-hatred, all kinds of stuff that played a big role in that evolution that some women went through. So anyway, so I think a political lesbian is someone who understands the political nature of heterosexuality, essentially. Understands that it's enforced, that it's mandatory, that it's an institution that is part of the oppression of women, and that women are not really free to love who we love or to live as we like to live. So I think that that's what a political lesbian is, someone who understands it and understands it in their own lives and understands the choices they made and why, and sees it in more of a political feminist way, like basically understanding the heterosexual institution, and that there's a nascent political feminist rebellion in the decision to embrace women as partners and lovers, life partners and lovers. And that's what a lesbian is. A lesbian is someone who does lesbianism, someone who lives exclusively as a lesbian, regardless of what they felt before. There's many roads to get there, but once you're there, if you're there and you're living exclusively relating to women as partners and lovers, and romantic and sexual partners, you're a lesbian. So I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne. Anne Menasche of Feminists in Struggle, and also a contributing author to the book that came out by Spinifex Press called I Wish I Was a Lesbian. And so now we're going to hear from Pinwheel Art. She's a mother, a feminist activist, and an artist. So take it away, Pinwheel Art.
All right. So I guess I'm the odd woman out here. I am a mother. I'm a mother of 5, and I am heterosexual. I have discussed this issue a lot with my friends, with a lot of lesbians in my life. And, I agree with much of what the women have said. I agree that it could be potentially a very powerful political movement. I think a lot of it is semantics, but I always look at everything. Well, let me back up a little bit. So I'm a feminist. I've always been a feminist. I grew up with my mother who was a feminist, and the way her feminism worked, it was always centering mothers and their children. We grew up in La Leche League, surrounded by other mothers with kids running around. I don't recall the fathers very much being in, they were there, but my memories are of the mothers and the children. So that has always been my feminism. And now that I've grown up and I've become a mother myself, I've seen that there's really a very crucial need to center mothers and our children in feminism. I've been to spaces where we have been absolutely rejected, which I'm sure a lot of women who have, who are participating in political lesbian can relate to in different ways. But for me, that's the center of my lesbianism, of my feminism, is centering mothers and our children. I work as a doula. I'm a aspiring midwife. So that's all very important to me. And these women, of course, are getting pregnant with their male partners. So, they're not going to exclude them from their life. They very much want to be mothers. They want to be with their partners. Many of them love their partners very much and have very good, healthy relationships. Of course, that's not always the case. We know from statistics that there's a lot of dangers from living with men and partnering with men. But in my eyes, I think we need to bring them with us. We need to be raising our male sons to do better so that we can have a better future. Because as a mother, I definitely look at this as fighting for their future. So a lesbian, to me is a very specific thing. I think this political lesbianism, it's great to allow women to see that they can choose this if they feel confused about it. However, in my life, I feel like I kind of grew up in an opposite kind of world where everyone thought I was a lesbian when I was growing up for whatever reason, because I wasn't boy crazy. I don't know, because I had a lot of lesbian friends, because I don't know, like I was a girl's girl, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. So I never felt this pressure that I had to partner with a man. It was almost like I was expected to partner with a female. And that just wasn't where my heart went. And I think to say that anybody can take on women as partners is a little harmful very harmful, because I'm not going to allow anybody access to my body that I'm not in love with. And if that happens to be, if it's not women, it's not women. And that's how it is for me. It's not something that was ever outside of my, sphere that I thought I couldn't be. It's just, I love having my children. I love pregnancy. I love childbirth, and it's going to continue to happen. And we need women there to hold that space, to bring life into the world, and not just life, but death as well. We also see life out of this world. So yeah, that's, I guess I'll leave it there. That's a little bit about me. That's why I came to this conversation today, was because I just saw a lot of, tension around this issue. I saw a lot of women, a lot of just hurt. I saw women feeling pain from this idea that they could choose, because it could go both ways. If you can choose to be a lesbian, you can choose to be heterosexual. So so that's why I came here today, and I'm so grateful to be in this space with you all, talking and kind of trying to work these things out in the world, because it's all very, very important to me. I love women with all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alix. Something that I heard just real briefly in what you said is that you want to be welcomed into these women only, maybe lesbian focused spaces, and it's okay to be heterosexual. It's okay to be a mother and to have a feminism that focuses in on women and children, and I think, I got to go to Mishfest. And so I saw an environment where and I was heterosexual when I went the first time. And so I think there's a place for every woman in women's spaces if they love women, and you obviously do. And so thank you so much for that. I really appreciated it. And now we're going to go on. Before we get responses from the panelists to each other's introductions and to questions from the live audience, we're going to get succinct definitions of the words lesbian and political lesbian from our panelists who've been pondering their definitions for days. Let me start again with Jesika Gonzalez. She has 2 minutes to focus on her definitions of these two terms, lesbian and political lesbian.
So for me, a lesbian is the same what it might be for many others, which is a lesbian is a woman that pursues romantic and sexual relationships and experiences with other women exclusively. A political lesbian is a woman that rejects romantic and sexual relationships with men and chooses to redirect that energy and those efforts to women. And those are my definitions.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to our next speaker then. Okay, Julianna.
Hi. All right. So my definitions are going to be pretty basic. I believe a lesbian is an adult female homosexual. The definition of political, I just wrote down, political is basically a governance of a country or a society. So for me, political lesbian is a woman who believes she can choose to become a homosexual.
Okay, thank you so much, Julianna.
Yeah, so I agree with, I like Jessica's definitions, but I'll just say a lesbian is a woman who exclusively directs her emotional and romantic and sexual energy in relationships with other women. And that's what she is now and looking forward, regardless of what her past was. A political lesbian is someone who understands the political nature of compulsory heterosexuality as a political institution that is part of the oppression of women and is conscious of their life choices and understanding, patriarchy, and that is a motivating factor in the way they decide to live their lives. So I think that's those two things.
Okay, thank you.
My definition of lesbian is simply a woman or adult human female who enjoys making love to other women exclusively. Political lesbian, I believe that those are women who choose to exclude male partners from their lives as a political statement. And I think that's probably it.
Okay, awesome. So we got everyone's definitions.
Thank you to our panelists for joining us. To hear the full panel, head over to WLRN's YouTube page. Next, we'll hear Thistle's interview with Angela Wild.
So, Angela, tell us why you felt it was important to publish I Wish I Was a Lesbian right now, and what's been the overall response so far?
Well, first of all, heterosexuality remains an institution that is imposed, that is oppressing women. Like, this is true, and this book could have been published at any point in time. And as we know, heterosexuality allows patriarchy to function, isn't it? It's because heterosexuality is imposed on us, is because it's imposed on women, that men are able to get the fuel that they need from us, the care that they need from us, the work that they need from us, our reproductive function, etc. And I do want to give this particular point a bit of attention in your question, because very often when we say heterosexuality as an institution, women don't necessarily understand what it means. And I want to say that in very, very simple words. We know that men fare better when they are coupled up with women, And we also know that women fare better when we are single. That's because of that exploitation. We know that men, don't live as long or as healthy or cannot look after themselves when they are single. They have higher rate of suicide. They have higher mortality rate, shorter life expectancy compared to married men. That is what women bring to the table in heterosexuality. But at the same time, we know that women live happier and more content and healthier and longer when we are single. So you can really see that that is really an interesting imbalance, in fact. And we, of course, on top of that, as feminists, we are very well aware that the global data confirm that women are significantly more likely to be killed by men they know, intimate partners being the most common perpetrator. And I feel like any moment in time in the feminist movement, if we're not talking about this, what are we talking about? This is really an important conversation. And, to get a bit more in the context of today, because your question is right now, why are we publishing it right now? Right now, I think there's a massive historical moment happening where so many women are leaving men. The stats, 45% of women will be single and child-free by 2030. 45%. It's more than a critical mass. It's massive. And a lot of these women are leaving men, are disgusted by them, do not want to have interaction with them, including sexual interaction with them. But they also ask, I wish I was a lesbian. Like, this is a comment that I've noticed for the few last years online. And I'm like, why is nobody responding to that? Because I've become a lesbian. I was straight. I've had the same or similar journey to them. And at some point, somebody told me, somebody called Sheila Jeffries told me, well, I became a lesbian, so can you. Women can do that. And I thought, how do we respond to these women? Because as we know, the online comment section is not necessarily the healthiest one. It's not necessarily where we can bring the best analysis. So I thought, let's do a proper, thorough, thought through answer in a book.
Awesome.
And this is why. I mean, this is really these two things coming.
How many authors contributed to the book?
Oh my God, on the top of my head, I don't even know. I think it's 33. Because there's also, actually there's two collectives. So in one of the collective, I don't know how many women are involved. And around 30 women.
So quite a number of women from not just the UK, but from other countries. And yeah, so that's nice. I love that. And the next question the WLRN Collective has for you is, can you define the terms lesbian and political lesbian? And take a few minutes, what are those, how did you come up with those definitions?
Yeah, but I do want to take a few minutes because I think it's a really interesting question. Lesbian, I think like most people, I would say, is a woman who is sexually and romantically attracted to women at the exclusion of men. That's, what most people would agree with. And a political lesbian is also a woman who is sexually, romantically attracted to women at the exclusion of men. But the difference, there's a few differences, but one of the main differences is in the framework and sometimes in the journey, what we have getting there. A political lesbian is a woman who understands sexuality as political, that our sexual attraction doesn't exist in a vacuum, that women's attraction to men is designed, is pressured, is coerced, is groomed, is gaslighted, imposed on us by the patriarchal institutions. And that when a woman calls herself a lesbian, that always includes a political component. And that's whether the lesbian realizes this political component or not. Because really, if you're a lesbian, if you want to exist as a lesbian, what you must do always is reject men because of this imposition that comes at us all the time, because of this heterosexuality that is forced on us, because of, Joe and Harry coming at you all the time, and especially when you're young, and you always have to say no. And no is a boundary, and boundary is a political thing, whether, we see it or not. And I think the first step is the political lesbian makes that political dynamic explicit, as opposed to a lesbian who might not see that aspect. And the other difference that I wanted to make is in the journey. So sometimes some political lesbians have escaped this heterosexual grooming that I've mentioned and exited heterosexuality. That's my case. And this process, can take many forms. Sometimes it's a mix of consciousness raising, reading lesbian feminist text, the inclusion in a woman-only space. We were talking about it yesterday. And I think political lesbianism is part that rejection of the imposed heterosexuality, but also part realization that sexuality is not innate or immutable, like we've heard, that this is a patriarchal propaganda, and that, you can choose, that there is this element of decision that you can have over your life and your sexuality, and many of us did choose. So in terms of journey, this is often that journey. But in the book, you also see several political lesbians who are, who never had any relationship with men, what we would call gold star, who also have this understanding that heterosexuality is an institution and that lesbianism is a liberation path that women can choose. So I think the frame is really important.
Those are fantastic definitions. And why do you think definitions are significant for having good conversations amongst women, trying to figure out our collective damaged sex and sexuality, whether you call yourself bi or heterosexual or detransitioning or whatever you call yourself as a female under patriarchy, we are collectively damaged by patriarchal constructs and behaviors around our sex and our sexuality. So how do definitions help us heal together rather than apart?
I think, first of all, if we don't have clear definition that we all agree on, we have conflict. And this is what is happening right now. We don't agree, which is, I think, fine, as long as, we can understand the definition of others. And I completely understand the definition of a woman who might not have had the same journey as me. I understand that her experience is different. I also understand that because of that different experience, she might have a different framework. Fine. I think the idea is that, I would really like to see that respect back at women who have a different understanding. But like going wider in your question, you say why definitions are important, why are words even important? Because I think as women in male supremacy, the language is a man-made language. I mean, I'll refer you to Del Spender, of course, but without feminist work, there are some words that we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have sexism. We wouldn't have sexual harassment. We wouldn't have, there's loads of concepts that were coined by feminists when we collectively realized what was happening to us. And so, the fact that we discuss this definition and that we, put them down and agree are actually really important so we can define the nature of our experience and how we can fight it.
And find that mutuality and that commonality. And I understand, you want that mutual respect. And I think women who are in opposition to and critical of political lesbianism, as we saw yesterday in the roundtable discussion, if they feel respected and they feel that they can, they brought their best selves and they both stayed afterwards and spoke with me and they both were stretched. And that's why I think that women-only space is so important, and that's what Mishfest did. Because it was a women's festival, not a lesbian festival. There were tons of lesbians there, but it was a women's festival, which is kind of a way of disguising it to the patriarchy, so that they don't know how powerful that is for individual women. That you find places in yourself that you didn't know before when you're in a women-only environment, and it's a safe place to explore too,
Well,
but anyway,
it should be, and I mean, this is a little bit the idea behind the book. I don't have the capacity to create a space physically, but I thought, you can create a mental space, you can create a literary space, you can create a space where women can either go on their own, in the peace of their own room, read and discuss with themselves what they think of the ideas. That's really what I hope. I don't really want agreement or disagreement. I'm not really about that. I'm really about questioning. We are in a world where heterosexuality is not questioned. It is deemed to be natural. It is deemed to be good. It is deemed to be desirable. And political lesbian feminists are bringing this challenge and saying, actually, this is where women get the most killed.
And look, if you're secure in your heterosexuality and you think it's fine to be married to a man and do your radical feminism in different realms, especially within the patriarchy. But I think, again, getting back to that umbrella of women's space, if we lived in a women-only civilization and society, lesbians would be there and we could coexist. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like we need to have that mutual respect. And thank you for putting out this book, because it's really given the non-political lesbians a chance and to be a part of that larger community and come in and have a civil dialogue and a conversation instead of having all those
Can I
personal
just add one
attacks.
thing? This book, I know it says lesbian on the title, but it really is for women who are questioning, women who are not there yet, women who are saying, oh, what if? You know, and so it is not really a book for lesbians. I appreciate that a lot of you lesbians are reading it, but in my heart, you know, it's for these women who say, I wish I was a lesbian, and I'm crying for them.
Right. I wish I was a lesbian. And what I'm trying to say too is there are different roles to play in the feminist movement. And I learned that yesterday during the discussion. Like, women give birth.
Yeah.
They just do. Women birth humanity is one of the stickers that that Alix Pinwheel Art has designed and made and added to our women's movement. And you see that sticker on the street in patriarchy, and you feel that solidarity. You know, it's like, yes, women are embodied, and we are the ones that, you know, and that's a valid women's realm, to that midwifery.
But you know, I want to add a little something here, because I'm a mother, as you know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I think you can both be a mother, appreciate what motherhood really truly is, you know, on the ground, at the same time being critical of the institution. And it's a bit like heterosexuality. You know, you've got the fact that you need a certain amount of reproduction to happen so that indeed we are not going extinct, without embracing everything in the institution that actually puts women down, you know, oppresses us. I mean, motherhood is a pretty deadly institution. It's not being against mothers to say it. The first cause of death in women in the first year of their life is suicide. That's how tough it is to be a mom. And it's not an anti-mother comment. It's a comment that says, under patriarchy, heterosexuality kills us, motherhood kills us. Where I think when we talk about sexuality and we talk about motherhood, we're talking about aspects of our life that are so intimate, and that also we have been taught to internalize as ours, you know, our own. But really, they are colonized aspects of our lives as well. As I was saying, you know, I'm giving the example of how often we die in heterosexuality, what men do to us in sex, how we die in motherhood. And when we talk about this critically, it is difficult, I know, because, you know, I was straight before, I was on the other side, I know what it's like. It is difficult to hear a political analysis of what you see as your experience.
You are listening to WLRN.
To hear the entire hour-and-a-half interview with Angela Wild, please go to WLRNmedia.com. Next up, we'll hear commentary from Thistle and Jocelyn.
Some women find the idea that women can choose lesbianism after being heterosexual so objectionable that they denounced the book I Wish I Was a Lesbian even before it was released. Others have gone so far to call political lesbians terrorists and fakes. Such reactions are not only inflammatory, but discourage thoughtful discussion about women's sexuality, autonomy, and freedom. Political lesbianism deserves to be discussed amongst women, all women, without name-calling or censorship. Women should be free to explore ideas about sexuality, identity, and resistance to patriarchal structures without being accused of causing harm. All women have skin in the game because we all suffer under male rule. Banding together as a class, a critical mass of us will bring about societal change that transforms women into citizens of our own society and therefore leaving male society behind. Political lesbianism offers women, all women, the choice to move away from patriarchal rule. Some women can and will move away more than others depending on individual circumstances. The central issue here is not whether any woman can become a lesbian. It is whether women can critically examine social conditioning and make autonomous choices about their personal lives. Can women challenge expectations around heterosexuality? Can they decide that relationships with men are not for them? These questions should be open to discussion. Political lesbianism is not about coercing heterosexual women or shaming them into same-sex relationships. It's not about inauthenticity or going against one's natural inclinations and instincts. Rather, it's an analysis of how patriarchal systems shape women's lives and our desires. It invites women to consider whether their attraction to men is entirely self-determined or influenced, maybe, just maybe, by social expectations. Any woman has the right to undertake this exploration. Human sexuality exists within a political context. Feminist analysis examines how women's oppression is intertwined with sex, sexuality, and reproduction. For this reason, decisions about relationships, sex, and reproduction must remain a woman's own. At the same time, it's worth questioning how much of what we experience as, quote, choice in heterosexual relationships is truly free from social conditioning. Consider little girls in kindergarten, for example, dressed in pink princess outfits, dreaming of Prince Charming. How many are expressing authentic preferences, and how many are responding to expectations they've absorbed from birth? From an early age, girls are socialized into heterosexuality through family, media, education, and culture. Within patriarchy, men, as a class, hold disproportionate economic, political, social, and emotional power over women. This unequal distribution of power shapes the conditions under which women make choices about intimacy and partnership. From this perspective, lesbianism can be understood as a choice because it represents a departure from the socially enforced norm, whereas heterosexuality functions less as a choice and more as an institution that patriarchy uses to organize, regulate, and maintain women's obedience to men. Regardless, I think women should be embraced with open arms into women-only spaces, no matter their sexual orientation, as long as they don't make the women-only gathering about men somehow. Women, unfortunately, even lesbians, often bond over their feelings and attachments to men. The broader point is that women should have the freedom to question, explore, and define their own lives within the context of our relationships with one another. Disagreement is inevitable, but disagreement should not become hostile or should not become hostility toward women who reach different conclusions, define things differently, or ask uncomfortable questions. If a woman wishes to explore lesbianism, political lesbianism, or a life independent of men, she should be free to do so without fear of ridicule or condemnation from her sisters in the movement. Likewise, if a woman chooses to come out as a lesbian and seek support from other women, she should be met with acceptance and solidarity in a genuinely woman-loving feminist movement. A feminist movement committed to women's liberation would never encourage lesbians to remain closeted, especially not in relation to other lesbians. But let's be real. We know that women going back to men after being lesbian when pressured by other women to do so happens. It's not about being out proud and loud like male gayness is. I agree with Jesika on this one. If it's too hard for you to come out to women friends, don't. But don't stop your dedication to a male-free lesbian life. Don't stop your intention to love and date women. Do it quietly if you need to, but do it. Thanks for listening and staying tuned to WLRN. Next up, hear compelling commentary on the topic from WLRN's Jocelyn Crawley.
As men continue to rule the world and keep women and girls trapped in various systems of social, economic, and material slavery, radical feminists simultaneously keep developing theoretical frameworks and dissident discourses designed to challenge patriarchal power. One of these discourses is political lesbianism. Although defined diversely and divergently, political lesbianism can be thought of as an ideological perspective which advocates the rejection of heterosexuality and avoidance of sexual and romantic relationships with men. Numerous radical feminists have articulated the multifarious, ongoing harms that women experience while existing within male-dominated worlds in which women are implicitly or explicitly informed that they are expected to be in romantic and/or sexual relationships with men. In their important essays, Love Your Enemy, The Debate Between Heterosexual Feminism and Political Lesbianism, and Political Lesbianism, The Case Against Heterosexuality, Lyle Coveney, Tina Crockett, Al Garthwaite, Sheila Jeffries, and Valerie Sinclair outline how heterosexuality operates as an institution which adversely impacts female people. Specifically, they note that the heterosexual couple is the basic unit of the political structure of male supremacy. In it, each individual woman comes under the control of an individual man. It is more efficient by far than keeping women in ghettos, camps, or even sheds at the bottom of the garden. In the couple, love and sex are used to obscure the realities of oppression, to prevent women identifying with each other in order to revolt, and from identifying their man as part of the enemy. Any woman who takes part in a heterosexual couple helps to shore up male supremacy by making its foundations stronger. With this argumentation, women who have been socialized to naturalize heterosexuality as just the way things are, while also accepting the abuses they suffer within heterosexual frameworks as normative and inevitable, can begin to reconceptualize reality and understand how oppression works. Once this burgeoning cognitive framework develops, women may then begin questioning whether they still want to exist and operate within an institution that adversely impacts them. As many individuals have pointed out, understanding and rejecting the harms that transpire in heterosexuality does not have to entail assent to the edicts of political lesbianism. Specifically, women do not have to choose to become either A, lesbians, or B, political lesbians. However, the theoretical frameworks, ideologies, and dissonant cognitive systems that exist within political lesbian discourses can enable women to further unpack and understand how male supremacy works, while also providing them with resources, strategies, and social systems which enable them to develop lives that are not problematically male-centered. And what does it mean to be male-centered? Being male-centered is deeper than the definition some people offer, which is that a male-centered woman is a heterosexual woman whose life is organized around romantic, sexual, emotive, and cognitive commitments to men. Truthfully, those commitments are not necessarily confluent with the perpetuation of patriarchy. But to be male-centered, I argue, means that you place greater primacy on pleasing and catering to male people than attending to the basic needs of women and girls who are forced to live in a patriarchal world which continually deprives them of the resources and care they need to thrive economically and emotively. In addition to caring about and loving men more than women, being male-centered also implies the perpetuation of the form of patriarchy, which involves ensuring that women exist in a state of dissociation and de-individuation, which involves a lack of self-reflexivity, coupled with a failure to develop and maintain an awareness of one's own personal proclivities, predilections, and preferences. This self-alienation exists for the purpose of making patriarchy more effective and ensuring that women will operate as mindless slaves who nod with docility as men tell them what to do and how to do it. It is important to remember that the efficacy of male supremacy is contingent upon the normalization of heterosexuality, meaning that the development of critical consciousness regarding patriarchy can and should involve women questioning whether they want to be in romantic and/or sexual relationships with men, many of whom have or will rape, murder, sexually harass, or otherwise harm one or multiple female partners. A radical feminist question that can and should surface in context of the discourses made possible by political lesbianism is not just, should I be in a relationship with a man given that he may physically or mentally harm me, but also, should I be in a relationship with a man who has already or may eventually harm another woman? The latter question engages a form of radical feminist consciousness which involves experiencing and expressing concern for all women and recognizing the collective struggle that female people exist within rather than conceptualizing oneself within a neoliberal framework of rugged individualism and being primarily concerned about one's own socioeconomic and political mobility, with these forms of mobility almost always being tied to one's willingness to align one's female self with men. In thinking critically about political lesbianism, I agree with those who argue that the central issue to be examined within radical feminist frameworks is not whether female people should become political lesbians. Nevertheless, the ideological frameworks and questions posed within this sphere are important and should be carefully considered rather than ignored. It is important to note that many so-called feminist organizations continue to consistently and intentionally ignore or suppress discourses regarding lesbianism because of fear regarding how men will respond to the engagement of these socially dissident lines of thought. This approach of thought suppression is not radical and it is not feminist. It is assimilationist and it is also androcentric. Moreover, it is an assimilationist approach because it is an androcentric approach which continually centers the desires and preferences of men rather than being attentive to the ideas, purposes, and concerns of women. For these reasons and more, political lesbianism can and should remain a part of radical feminist discourse irrespective of how the women who participate in such discourses identify their sexual orientation.
This is Frida signing off on another edition of WLRN's monthly handcrafted podcast. You can find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and SoundCloud, and also at our website, WLRNmedia.com. Thanks for listening.
If you like what you are hearing and would like to donate to the cause of feminist community radio, please visit our WordPress site and click on the donate button. Check out our merch tab to get a nice gift in exchange for your donation. And if you are interested in joining our team, send us a letter of interest to info@WLRNmedia.com. We are looking for new volunteers to conduct interviews, write blog posts, post to our Facebook and other social media pages, and do other tasks to keep us moving forward as a collective of media activist women. Thanks for listening. This is Jocelyn, signing off for now.
And this is Margaret. To create the image for WLRN's episode 123 on political lesbianism, I started with the idea of fireworks. The episode is coming out just prior to July 4th weekend, so we are acknowledging the holiday. This coming Saturday is the 250th anniversary of the United States Declaration of Independence. It's a good time to appreciate our unalienable rights, including those to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At Women's Liberation Radio News, we are mindful of how politics, religion, and the media, including our own created media, contribute to what freedoms we recognize as possible for ourselves and others. Sometimes there may be fireworks among us as we figure out our own definitions, our own possibilities, and our connections and differences. We all have the opportunity to make our world a better place, to improve our political situation in whatever means available. WLRN is one of those means. Our monthly podcasts are always crafted with intention and in solidarity with women worldwide. Thanks for your support. We would love to hear from you, so please share, like, and comment widely.
And I'm Anne. Thanks for tuning in. Next month, we'll focus our program on the 2026 National Organization for Women Conference that took place in Alexandria, Virginia on the last weekend of June. Our handcrafted podcasts always come out on the first Thursday of the month, so look for it on Thursday, August 6th. If you'd like to receive our newsletter that notifies you of when each podcast, music show, and interview is released, visit our website. Stay strong in the struggle, and thanks for listening.
But how will we find patriarchal kiss.